Good morning again. Many years ago, I once had an argument with a friend at a coffee shop over what we thought to be a very serious and pressing issue. The argument was about whether hummus was made of garbanzo beans or chickpeas. And this was before smartphones existed, so you couldn't just look something up on your phone right there on the spot and just settle the matter. Now, these were the good old days where you had to give reasons and arguments for the things that you believed. So in our heated exchange, I defended the garbanzo bean position, while my friend defended the chickpea position. And each of us was absolutely convinced that we were correct and that the other was sorely mistaken. So once we had access to a computer later in the day, we looked at some recipes for hummus, and I was very pleased to discover that I had come out victorious in the debate. Hummus is, in fact, made of garbanzo beans. But my friend wasn't quite satisfied with looking at just one recipe, so we scrolled down to another, and my smile turned to a frown as I discovered that my friend was equally correct. Hummus is made of chickpeas. It had dawned on us that garbanzo beans and chickpeas are two names for the very same thing. Now, as silly as this little argument is, it's really not so different from any argument or any debate on any topic, no matter how important it is. With every argument or disagreement, both parties are presupposing two essential things in order to make the argument work. Truth exists, and we can know the truth. If there were no truth, and we had no access to it, then all arguments would be futile. It would just be one person's preferences against another person's preferences, and you can't really settle an argument if it's just preference against preference. Imagine an argument that went something like this. My favorite fast food chain is In-N-Out. Well, I disagree. My favorite is White Castle. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. I like In-N-Out. Yeah, but my favorite is White Castle. I like In-N-Out. I like White Castle. Perhaps many arguments actually do sound like that, unfortunately, but we can see that it's not really a rational exchange, is it? It's not rational because there's no objective claim that is being disputed or being disagreed or agreed upon. It's just people merely asserting their own subjective preferences. Now, if the argument was about which is the better fast food chain, then now there's a claim that we can actually assess. We could examine the flavors, the ingredients, the popularity, the history, the prices, all these different things, and see which one comes out on top. And just for the record, In-N-Out is by far the superior fast food chain, but we already know that here, right? Sorry, East Coast. The point is, all arguments, debates, discussions worth having are based upon the existence of truth and the ability to know the truth. Half a millennium ago, Martin Luther heralded the famous words, "Peace if possible, truth at all costs." Do you agree? His statement reflects the Christian priority down through the ages of knowing and proclaiming the truth, even at the cost of peace. This statement stems from the conviction that if you aim for peace before truth, you will have neither. If you aim for truth before peace, you will ultimately have both. Having the truth is worth anything undesirable that may also come along with it. Followers of Jesus must be lovers of the truth. You cannot be a follower of Jesus if you also do not love the truth. We must be seekers of the truth. We must be proclaimers of the truth. We must be defenders of the truth. It cannot be traded for anything else. Peace, power, party loyalty, comfort, even survival, all of these must bend their knee to truth in the end. The Apostle Paul, in his first letter to Timothy, said that the church is the pillar and the foundation of the truth. And if that describes the church, then it must also describe the individual members of the church, because a church is nothing without its constituents that form it. It may have been John Wesley, although I'm not sure about this, but it may have been John Wesley who said, if I'm wrong, I want to know. But if I'm right, then I want everybody else to know. The truth is worth knowing, worth proclaiming, worth defending. In this sermon, I'll be kind of riding on the wake of Pastor Sergio's sermon from last week as we continue to look at the enemy's assault on truth. If you were here last week, you'll remember that Pastor Sergio presented these modern counterfeits to the truth in the form of AI and deepfakes, something that just did not exist even 5 years ago. And we'll need discernment as we sort of navigate through the maze of deceit in the coming years. Today, we're going to look at a quite different yet no less threatening assault on truth that has become especially prevalent in the 20th and the 21st century. Let's start by looking at a discussion, an interrogation of Jesus by Pontius Pilate. This was just before he handed him over to be crucified, and now Pontius Pilate, the procurator of, was the city? I forget which one it is. The governor, the procurator, he's interrogating Jesus, and he's about to hand him over to be crucified. Somebody can help me with that later on. In John 18, he had just asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" This is a rumor that had been circulating. And this is how Jesus answers. "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not of this world." Then Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" That last question there, what is truth? What a strange question to ask. Notice that he does not ask what is the truth, but he asks what is truth itself. This question foreshadows the general philosophical zeitgeist of our own day. What is truth? It's as though Pilate was just dismissive of the whole idea of truth in general. What's so great about the truth that I should even care or have a concern about it? As we fast forward into the modern age, this sentiment is ubiquitous in our culture. I can guarantee you have come across this statement before. That's true for you, but not true for me. In fact, you've probably come across it several times in your life. Maybe you have even said this yourself. If you have, we forgive you. We're a forgiving church here. It's okay. Statements like these fit neatly into the 20th century ideology of postmodernism, which rejects the existence of objective truth. Truth, it's all just relative to the individual, the postmodernists would say. It's all just opinions and preferences and struggles for power, nothing more. There is no truth, just points of view. A poll conducted by the American Worldview Inventory in 2021 gave the frightening statistic that 54% of the participants embraced the postmodern idea that all truth is subjective and there are no moral absolutes. 54%, more than half. And actually, the numbers don't fare too much better for Christians, if you can believe it. So is there any merit to postmodernism? After all, doesn't the truth just sort of get in the way sometimes? The truth divides, the truth hurts, the truth is intolerant, the truth is unforgiving. Maybe we should all just settle down with all this truth stuff and just love one another and affirm one another. Be what you want to be. Believe what you want to believe, whatever makes you feel good. As for the truth, well, that's just a useful tool that fascists weaponize to have control over others. This is the way that much of society actually has come to see the notion of truth. We have our feet planted firmly in midair, as Francis Schaeffer put it. In 1882, a philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche coined the phrase, "God is dead." I think we're all probably familiar with that phrase. In fact, there was a movie made not too long ago called God is Not Dead. But the phrase, as it was originally understood, is actually misunderstood today. And I wanted to read to you Nietzsche's parable where it first appeared. And as you'll see, the phrase does not refer to the literal death of God, as though that's even possible, but it rather refers to the death of the belief in God and all that that entails in a person's life and especially society. So here's a somewhat lengthy excerpt from Nietzsche's parable of the madman. I'm going to read this. "Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace, and cried incessantly, 'I seek God, I seek God.' As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. Has he got lost? Asked one. Did he lose his way like a child? Asked another. Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage or emigrated? Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God? He cried. I will tell you, we have killed him. You and I, all of us, are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us a sponge to wipe away the horizon? What were we doing when we unchained the earth from the sun? Whither is it now moving? Whither are we now moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually, backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine composition? Gods, too, decompose. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. He finishes his parable with this. Here the madman fell silent and looked again at his listeners, and they, too, were silent and stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke in pieces and went out. I have come too early, he said then. My time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering. It has not yet reached the ears of men. This was written in 1882 and is perhaps the greatest preamble to what the world would become in the 20th and the 21st centuries. When God disappears from society, so does all truth and all meaning. Why? Because there's no longer any transcendent anchoring point on which to fasten the truth. Are we moving backward? Are we moving forward in all directions, he asks? What sacred games shall we need to invent to replace the objective standards of truth that only the unchanging God can provide? The madman's proclamation may have been a bit too early in 1882, but this was before the birth of postmodernism. It cuts right to the heart of modern society. With the death of God, inescapably comes the death of truth in its wake, and we are now living in that time. But what the relativists, the person who believes that truth is relative, what the relativist fails to understand is that denying the absolute nature of truth is not only foolish, but it's actually impossible. It cannot be done. You cannot do it. Let's look at why. To get us thinking in the right direction, I'm going to put a few sentences on the screen. See if you can tell me what is wrong with these sentences. I cannot speak a word of English. What language is this written in? No sentence is longer than 6 words. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words in the sentence. I don't exist. Well, then who wrote the sentence? Language carries no meaning. Whoever wrote this, weren't they intending this sentence to convey meaning? No one can know anything for sure. Whoops, wrong one. You should not push your morality onto others. By saying this, aren't you pushing your morality onto others by telling a person what they should or should not do? No one can know anything for sure. Makes you wonder, how do you know that? If a belief cannot be scientifically verified, then it is irrational. What about that belief? That is, what about the belief that all beliefs cannot be scientifically verified or they're irrational? Was that scientifically verified? Well, no. Therefore, it must be irrational. These are what we call self-refuting statements. In each of these cases, the statement refutes itself. You don't need to try to work on refuting it or come up with some reason why it's false. It is false by the very statement itself. If it's true, then it's false, and it's logically incoherent. So then, what about these common statements about truth that we hear today? And I think you'll be very familiar with many of these statements. All truth is relative. Well, one must ask, is that truth relative? If it's objectively true that all truth is relative, then not all truth is relative, is it? What about this one? There is no truth, just points of view. Well, is that true, or is that just a point of view. If it's true, well, then I guess there are truths. If it's just a point of view, why bother even saying it? What's true for you is not true for me. If so, then this claim is only true for the person who makes it and for no others. Why then is the person bothering to make the claim in the first place, since he obviously believes that it does apply to others? With all of these, in attempting to deny the truth, you are actually affirming it. It is impossible, cannot be done. It is impossible to deny the absolute nature of truth. One day, a student approached his professor after class and reminded him that he had mentioned moral law during the lecture, then said, "Last semester, I learned that there isn't any moral law. Every society makes up its own right and wrong, its own good and bad, its own fair and unfair, and each one makes up something different." So the professor answered, "It's a relief to hear you say that, because I'm lazy and I hate grading papers. At the end of the semester, I'll be able to save myself from work by giving you an F without looking at your papers at all. Since you don't believe in moral standards like fairness that are true for everyone, I know you won't object." So the student gave the professor a startled glance, then admitted that there are at least some moral standards that are true. It turns out that truth is unavoidable. It is impossible to reject the notion of truth. Those who do deny the objective and absolute nature of truth will contradict themselves at every single turn in life. To quote Elvis, "Truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a time, but it ain't going away." Let's go back now to that interrogation scene with Pontius Pilate and Jesus, because I think John, who wrote this, is recording this conversation for a very particular and interesting reason. When Pilate asked Jesus, "What is truth?" Jesus did not answer him, you'll recall. He knew that Pilate was not seeking this in good faith. Pilate had more than enough evidence of the innocence of Jesus, but he was a coward, and so he turned Jesus over to be crucified. But what would Jesus have said had he given an answer? In the Gospel of John, Jesus makes the most unusual statement. He actually makes many unusual statements for our ears today, but he makes this one, which is exceptionally unusual, I think. "I am the way and the truth and the life." And I know we've heard this so many times and it sounds so normal to us, but think about what that actually means. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the truth. What is so unusual about this statement? Truth does not apply to persons, places, or things. Truth applies to statements. A truth refers to a statement that corresponds with reality. So we have true statements and false statements. For example, this image is not photoshopped. That is a truth, I guarantee it. The one you saw last week was actually a counterfeit, not true. But this is a true statement. This image is photoshopped. Not photoshopped. Did I say photoshopped the first time? I hope I didn't. This image is not photoshopped. It's real. I can guarantee it. That is true because it is a statement that corresponds with reality. But it makes no sense to say that this bottle is true, or this pulpit is true, or this microphone is true, or even that I am true. While I may say true things, at least most of the time, I would never be so audacious to say that I am the truth. Not only would this be arrogant, but would it even make sense? Things are not true and false. Statements are true. And I better get this off of this. How can we take anything seriously with that picture up there? Okay. Things are not true and false. Statements are true and false. So what could Jesus have possibly meant by saying that he is the truth? After all, Jesus is not a statement. He is a person. This self-designation, I contend, can only be applied to Jesus and no other. And it's no coincidence that it appears in the Gospel of John. The first verse of John's Gospel says, "In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God." We're more familiar with the English translation, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." So who is the Logos? It's Jesus. It's Jesus. The term logos is a Greek term that was used by philosophers at the time to refer to the rational principle of the cosmos that binds everything together under a unified whole, whatever that means, right? They believe that everything finds meaning in the logos. All truth is grounded in the logos. But John, who was familiar with this term, personifies this concept. It's not an abstract principle, John says. It's a person. It's the person of Jesus who brings the world together under a unified whole. He's the very expression of God himself. By him, through him, for him, all things were made and all things hold together. It is Jesus who stands the very center of reality. So when Pilate asks Jesus, "What is truth?" the answer was, "I am." You see, it's not that Jesus will lead you to the truth like a map or like a signpost, as though he's a means to some other end. It's that the truth leads to him and finds its source in him. He is the end itself. All of reality revolves around Christ. So what does this all mean for us? It's a bit abstract, isn't it? Well, have you ever seen these types of buildings before? You know what kind of architecture they call this? Postmodern. Postmodern. They do not have straight walls. They do not have flat roofs. They defy ordinary conventions of traditional architecture. But do you know what is not postmodern about these buildings? The foundation. You can mess with the walls and the windows of a roof all you want, but you mess with the foundation and the whole thing comes crashing down. Build your life on the truth of Jesus as your foundation, and you will be able to withstand any storm that comes your way. Let me begin to wrap this up. The enemy has done everything in his power to destroy the truth. Everything. You name it, he did it. Throughout history, we've seen attacks on the truth from every possible perspective imaginable. Idolatry, rationalism, atheism, tradition, scientism, hedonism, paganism, agnosticism, Gnosticism and agnosticism, materialism, verificationism, you name it, it has existed. But in the 20th century, the enemy got very clever. Instead of attacking the truth, he attacked the very notion of truth itself. You don't need to worry about destroying the truth if you convince people that it doesn't even exist. But no matter how hard he tries to destroy the truth, it always resurfaces. Why? Because the truth is, as Elvis said, unavoidable. You can shut it out for a time, but it's always going to return. You know what else is unavoidable? The truth is unavoidable, but also the truth is unavoidable. Truth with a capital T. Everyone will one day have to face Jesus. He's not going away anytime soon. In the book of Philippians, it says that at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. The beautiful thing, though, is that contrary to postmodernism, the truth doesn't oppress, it doesn't enslave, it doesn't subjugate, it liberates. Jesus said that you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. Truth or dare? Typically, we are asked to submit our sermon titles on Tuesday or Wednesday before we preach. So when I was asked for the title this week, I had nothing. I wasn't even sure exactly what I was going to preach on this week. So in a spur of a moment, I texted, truth or dare? It sounded good at the time. But then moments after I shot off the text, I was thinking to myself, truth or dare? What is that? How am I supposed to make a sermon out of that? So here's my appeal. Choose the truth. Sounds easy enough, but it's not always that easy. Choose the truth. Anything else in life, whether it's comfort, money, even happiness, is a dare not worth taking in life. Your life can only stand, even society itself can only stand on the truth and nothing else. grounding your life on anything else but the truth that is found in Jesus will always, without exception, fail you. He is the one name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. You may not accept that that is true, that the claim is true, yet, but at least give it the dignity of being true or false, and then go from there. The one thing it cannot be is true for me, but not true for you. If it's true for me, then it's true for you, and it's true for the whole world. And I believe with all of my heart that it is, and it's worth finding out if it is in fact true. Let's all